that pops in, but not banking on it. We got a couple people there. There's Sue. Hey, Sue, how are you?
Hey, fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining. There's Harold. Hey, Harold, what's going on? Harold, if you want to come in and be on the front of the screen here, we can have up to 10 people. So it's in the invite that I sent you on the Gmail or the G calendar or whatever the hell they call it link. But as we're signaling already from the tone that we're setting here, this is meant to be a pretty casual gathering, which I think useful things will be discovered and discussed. And so it's good to sort of record that so I can kind of cut those out and we can use them for the future. But also by having this be a live stream that people could maybe happen upon on LinkedIn or on my YouTube channel, it's just a good way for people to say, oh, I wonder what that is, and to sort of pop in and see that there's people working on this and to find out more. So as planned, really by design, I did this on July 3rd because I wanted to get it going, but I also wanted to have sort of a soft, casual launch here. I figured the day before 4th of July, when most people are probably in a car or on a plane, might be a good way to do that. But I do see we have at least 4 people that are joining in the audience, which means 4 people from the StreamYard audience. There might be other people watching on YouTube or LinkedIn. But do feel free in the comments side, if you are, I see Harold already joining us. Do feel free to go ahead and just pop in the comments where you are, where you're streaming in from. But thanks for joining. So good to see all you guys. Welcome to the inaugural Weekly Challenger, as I somewhat cheesily have called this. But the purpose of this is to just kind of have an ongoing conversation and sort of support workshop that will help people that are interested in starting campaigns for the carbon removal, local community carbon removal challenge, are in the midst of it and have some sort of discoveries they've made or maybe challenges that they're reaching, to be able to kind of workshop that out with a group of people. And I think we'll keep it pretty fluid in terms of the format. I think sometimes it'll be a group of people on screen here, maybe talking about how we spread the campaign to other places. Sometimes it might be a representative of a local government that is considering doing a campaign, or is at a certain process of it, that we can kind of do a deep dive with that people or those folks. I think occasionally what I'd like to do is sort of teach-ins around special subjects and topics about different forms of CDR that are represented in the challenge, or different, important concepts that people will want to wrap their heads around when they're thinking about carbon removal, like how do you compare 2 very different forms of carbon removal. And so we'll kind of see how it goes. But I think if we keep the door open on Thursdays and keep holding this, I think it'll help gain momentum and will help learn a lot of stuff together. So what I thought we would do is you all signed up, and I said these are really diehard CDR people from different areas certainly of the work that I do. And when I saw you signed up, I thought it would be awesome to just have you kind of on the front of the screen, and maybe we could have a conversation. But I thought it'd be good to kind of just start off with some introductions first. And I'll start with me. My name is Chris Neidl. I'm one of the co-founders of the Four Corners Carbon Coalition, and am acting as director. And I am the coordinator of the Community Carbon Removal Purchasing Challenge, which I'll drop the link to the page if people are happening upon and haven't seen it yet. You can learn more there. But what we're trying to do is basically get as many different cities, counties, towns, maybe even neighborhoods all across the United States between now and the end of the year to individually, as communities, agree to provide some financial support by buying carbon removal tons from a pre-selected list of carbon removal companies that were actually selected as part of a federal program that was also called the CDR Purchasing Challenge, that was set up in 2024. So these companies, which again are listed, we'll talk about them a little bit within the hour. They were pre-vetted by the Department of Energy with the help of a whole bunch of different subject experts, many picked from some of the national labs, based on their commercial readiness, the potential impact of their solution, how they engage with communities where they want to do projects. So I figured that list of companies was a good one that people could feel confident that these are legitimate companies that could be purchased from. So that is, I'm based in New York City. My other main job is I'm the carbon removal lead for the UN Climate Champions, which is an organization that tries to help non-state actors meet or exceed the Paris Agreement goals. So I'm very, very busy on that front. But this is a passion project for me that I will always be married to, and excited to be leading it. So let me shut up. That had to be a kind of a long intro to introduce the campaign as well. So I'm just going to kind of go in counterclockwise. I'm going to start with Sue Dorward. Hey, Sue. Good old buddy Sue.
How are you? I'm coming from our lake house in Northwest New Jersey. I am a longtime open air volunteer, got started with Chris on low carbon concrete. I have a master's in carbon management and have my own independent consultancy. I actually have a client who's thinking about buying carbon removals, but it's totally new space for them. And so I'm kind of looking at this from their perspective. I'm also starting to get involved in the Air Miners Buyers Club. So I'm not really sure which route my client will want to go on. And they're very tentative. So, just trying to figure out how to get buy-in from senior management is, the main challenge I'm facing at this point. But yeah, I'm really interested in this, and I love that this is with startups that have been vetted by the DOE program, and I love that there are so many local to the New York, New Jersey area, which surprises a lot of people when I say, "Oh, well, there's Ion and Avnos and Crew and Vicarb, and they're all close enough that we could go visit them and meet with their founders and build a relationship and help support them locally." So I'm really excited about that possibility.
Yeah, and Sue's been just a monster of a force around low carbon concrete through open air and now independently. And but ain't that the work, Sue? Is trying to get buy-in. Everything we do, it's always an uphill battle on that. And what you just alluded to is, CDR in the United States, there's certainly a heavy concentration of West Coast companies and a lot of different forms of CDR that link up with resources that are, heavily present in the Midwest or in the southern states. And there is a nice little ecosystem in the Northeast, but you're right, Sue, there's a good collection of Northeast companies represented among the suppliers. So with that, I'll go to Carl, my stalwart Carl Dans. How you doing, Carl?
Doing well, Chris. I'm so happy for you that you're in New York now, because I know that's where you wanted to get back to. So good stuff. Yeah, so echo everything Sue just said. I love the challenge, the way you've structured it. So I'm in Los Altos, California, which is 30,000 people. The main drag has like nail shops and restaurants, and there's no industrial anything, and it's almost a bedroom community. And yet in our climate action plan, it says we have a goal to be carbon neutral or to hit net zero by 2035. And I read that and I thought, wow, I wonder if they know what that actually means in terms of there's still going to be some emissions in 2035. So that's been kind of the starting point, and I can share more details later. But one quick story is that our mayor, and again, it's a small town, so the mayor role is basically pass the gavel, one to the right, every year. So we don't vote for mayor, but the gentleman who's currently our mayor was holding office hours at a nearby park. So I just walked over there, and I was wearing my I Love Basalt. I mean, it's got the Open Air Collective logo, and walked right in there. And to my amazement, he said, "Oh, yeah, basalt. I know about that, And it's like, we don't have a lot in California, but, up in the Cascades and the greater Northwest, because, it's volcanic." And I'm like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And so it was a very good conversation. And then there were some other people that had dropped in for, open office hours with the mayor. and now they're getting interested, and so it's just a fun thing to do, and I love that it's got this sort of community scope aspect. It's an educational opportunity, it's an awareness raising opportunity. So it's much more than just removing tons. It's building awareness and kind of getting the word out there. So
Yeah,
all right, I'll stop.
no, you're a habitual serial spread the worder of things. And the shirt that Carl referred to is we had some merch that we made a couple of years ago, and basalt is this just amazing mineral that's one of the most abundant, and it loves to bond with carbon and turn carbon into a mineral. So it's the basis of a couple of different forms of carbon removal. And I just posted, we had a sort of a I love basalt shirt for true CDR nerds, where the open air insignia instead of the heart. So feel free to look at our store there. We got some other good stuff. I'm usually wearing one of these shirts as well. So thank you, Carl. Appreciate it. Another Californian. We got California heavy. It's just me and Sue on the East Coast for who's up here right now. But I'll go to Kat. Hey, Kat.
Hey, Chris. So I am Kat. I work in the pallet industry, and I kind of fell into it because we had a bunch of wood residual and thought, what can we do with this besides mulching? And kind of went down the rabbit hole of biochar and found out the reason biochar is around and more prevalent is because of this CDR, aspects of it. And so kind of went down that rabbit hole with air miners, and then met, Chris along the way. And I'm fairly new in the industry. I would probably say like maybe 2 years. But because I know Chris and Carl and everybody here, it's really pushed me to become more and more of a CDR advocate in my community. And that was really important because I have already been involved in our community within my company here. And so really wanted to help bring the awareness into our county, and really help them figure out ways of achieving their climate action plans. So I find it really fun just to be around it's really inspiring. It's really amazing to hear everybody's story and where they fit on it, and it's never too late to start. So I think that's a really good point. And I just think that the people in here and all their passions and their energy in it, I think we can really get to our goals. So I'm looking forward to seeing where we are a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now. So happy to be here.
Yeah, and you've been great. It was great to connect with you, Kat. You've been really attending our kind of weekly, prior to these, webinars that we're starting right now. We've been kind of meeting up as a group and trying to push things forward. Carl and Sue and Brian have been in there. And you're down in Ventura County, and we won't name them yet until we confirm, but you and another member of our team, Sebastian, kind of got your teeth into a really exciting possible community that will hopefully make a commitment towards this in Ventura County. So hopefully we'll have more to share about that soon. I think Brian might be, I know he's out and about, so I'll go to John and Melissa, and then Brian, if you are available, you can introduce yourself, but then we can get into it. Go ahead, John.
Okay, I'm John Light and
Melissa Waters.
And we kind of work as a team, and both of us are trying to do everything we can to help reduce future emissions and to clean up legacy carbon from the atmosphere. And we got together with Chris, knowing he's a guy who has a lot of information for us.
Yeah, and we did a push to get our county, Orange County, we're the 6th most populous county in the country, to create their first ever climate action plan. And we continue to try to educate them on better practices and encourage them to do things like low embodied carbon concrete.
Yeah, John and Melissa, I met through the blockheads and that, and they're the kind of, it's one of those things where you get a group of people and say, it'd be great if we could reach out and find who our local representatives are within the city that, are responsible for this. And 2 hours later, there'll be multiple emails I'm copied on from John and Melissa who found those people where they live or in their county at the city level. So you guys are sort of the sort of ideal, just doing things. And so I was super excited when I saw you guys sign up to join us today. So again, we'll let, if Brian, when he's in a position to, but Brian's in Menlo Park, not too far from Carl. And you guys, John and Melissa, are down in Southern California, in Orange County. Yep. Okay, great. All right, great. Well, what I wanted to do just quickly I see we now have, looks like 7 people are actually viewing. Oh, here's Brian. I'm sending him on there. Hey, Brian, how are you? We're just doing introductions. Do you want to just do a quick one of what brought you here and what you're up to? If you can hear us.
This is for me, Chris?
Yep, that's for you. Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry. Thanks. I had to join, just got off the bus and the bike and then got home. Brian Schmidt of Menlo Park. We work in the city of Menlo Park in the San Francisco Bay Area, working on helping the city achieve its goal of full climate neutrality by 2030 and serve as a policy model for elsewhere. And the city has a climate action plan that by in attempting to achieve the 2030 climate neutrality, it anticipated that 10% of that effort would be through carbon dioxide removal. So that's been the focus of my involvement in this, is figuring out how we can work on that, especially with looking at some co-benefits or some regional applications that might involve it.
Yeah, and I'll just mention this. Like we'll discuss this at length, but when it comes to what are the types of places that might want to participate in this, and there's a variety, and many of which we'll discover. It's hard to know exactly what resonates with a local place. Sometimes it's just the force of the personality and the energy of the campaigner might make a place, but there's often these ins that we'll find. There's hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of local governments, whether they're cities or counties or towns, that have some commitment to emissions reductions, and they've published those. And they've, since doing that, there was a big bunch of them around 2016 and the year or so after, they've realized how tricky it is to get to like a net zero goal. And many of them have either initially or they have since sort of revised where they're looking at carbon removal, but often they don't quite know how to do that. They don't have a sense of what that would actually mean. And that really is kind of at the heart of this campaign. Yes, it's about putting real dollars forward, aggregating it, and supporting companies because demand is there. But I've always thought, as I said in the webinar the week before last, it's really more about getting people excited about it and understanding what it means within the context of their own community and their own priorities. And I think a good way to do that is you get some people together, whether it's the government or citizens, and they have to make a choice between a variety of different options, and they have to think about why. Why do we like that? And if you can get people through these, $5,000 targets, or if they exceed that, that is a way that I think it gets into the sort of imagination in the bloodstream in a way than just kind of telling people this is what carbon removal is. And that's kind of really the kind of animating idea. Hey, Pete, I see Pete's there joining us in the audience from Blacksburg, another just total doer when it comes to climate stuff. So what I wanted to do, just for people who are tuning in, I put the webinar in there, but what I've committed myself to, many of you guys know this, is I can barely put 2 words together without the benefit of a slide. But I want to avoid doing slides unless there's an absolute reason to, because it's got a picture of something that's illustrative, or if I am going to do one of those, sort of teach-ins on special subjects, I'll do that. But I want to just share just the webpage again, just to kind of remind people how it's configured, people who are watching. And so there's stuff that I've been adding, and there's 3 blog posts that I'm hoping I'll be able to probably over the weekend. I think I've kind of run out of time today. But if you can see this, my site, yep, looks like it's up. Basically you could look at, up here we have some sort of what's this all about, which, I spent a bit of time in. I think it kind of gets into why are we doing this and why might somebody want to join and start a campaign where they are. And then here we have the campaign section where the purple markers are actually the places that are doing it. So it's just not that important, but it's just once it starts to really fill up. And the yellow markers are the companies. What I'm trying to figure out is how to link it to the description of those companies, and that'll happen soon. But just a good sort of at a glance where campaigns popping up. And then as we add more of these, this also has a video option, but we don't have one from Boulder yet. This just sort of shows where there's campaigns. And when there's a live campaign, you can click on it and it has its own individual page. and it says where you can contribute, funds. And then right now we just have Boulder, which was our first sort of stake in the ground. Not surprising, Boulder County is one of the founding members of the Four Corners Carbon Coalition, and they agreed to sort of be community number one at launch, and they picked a supplier, Crew Carbon, and raised those funds. And we're probably, if we have a person in Boulder, we'll open that up again so that people can contribute beyond that 5,000. But as we move forward, as we get some in California or New Jersey or New York, you'll be able to select a state. And then when you click on that, it'll show you the cities that correspond. So you don't have to go through all of those in case you're looking at, wanting to contribute to where you are. And you might say, hey, there's not one where I am. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I'm gonna start a campaign and get that listed. Down here is the supplier list, where you can click on the different suppliers that we have, and I'll just show you Crew since I just referred to that. And it's got some good information. You can click on their website. It's just a little summary here. And then up here, there's sort of some background information. We think it's important to know about, who are the people that, I gotta see if the scroll bar is working. I'll work out and fix that. But who are the people sort of behind it? What are some of the awards and milestones they've done? What's kind of an overview of the projects that they're already doing? And then we have some resources in here too. If you click on, the image page, you can get it to, if I can get that to do it. Well, yeah. And it gives like a little caption. It might give some information, just relevant images, and then videos. So hopefully as we get more videos that might be related, I've always asked the suppliers, do they have a video of a project they're doing? We can add those and that'll populate, and then some just stuff in the news as well. So hopefully that's helpful for people to kind of do some window shopping about the kinds of companies they might be interested in. And then we have these here, which are kind of your campaign stages, and those blog posts that I mentioned that give kind of more of an in-depth on, well, how do I want to structure my campaign will be linked here, but it just gives people kind of a general sequence. And then we have a bunch of frequently asked questions, about what does it mean to be a campaign? How should campaigns run? That hopefully are a good starting point that, again, will continue to generate content and link it to the page. But I linked the actual page on the Four Corners website in the comments there, so you can see that. But what I wanted to do is to kind of start, for those of you who maybe attended the launch that I did for This is CDR the Tuesday before last, or saw the video of it. Maybe the people on the screen here, if you could raise your hand if you tuned into that. I'm curious, or if you saw it, great.
I saw the recording.
Okay, fantastic. So I just kind of wanted to start because it's so inside my head, and some of you guys have been very much a part of the development of this, but kind of wanted to do just a general ask me anything, about, well, what is this? How does this work? And what do you mean? And why did this happen? So any just fundamental or even highly detailed questions about the challenge and what it means to do a campaign, I think I can take now. It's an appropriate place to start with this first episode. So let me know. Was that a hand up, Sue? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's a hand up. So it looks like the way you're envisioning this is that we choose one supplier for our campaign. And I'm wondering how that happens if you're trying to recruit different people. Do you ask them for their input and then we try to jointly decide, or do you go into it and say, okay, my campaign's going to be with, this one supplier, let me go out and find people?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's multiple levels of engagement here. And I think that this is a big lesson I've learned being kind of an organizer or trying to do that thing that you were describing to get people to buy in, is that you have different categories of people who want to be involved. There's the hyper involved people, like everybody I'm looking at on the screen, who's like been showing up on Thursdays, trying to do stuff like that. And those are the people who are likely to be the drivers of campaigns, right? So that could be, they say, I'm in this place, I'm going to do a campaign, and we'll talk more about what the next steps on that be. Or they might even be, I think I can get other people to start campaigns, so I'm going to promote the challenge to my cousin Ernie in Rochester, or wherever you may think it is, right? So there's the sort of people that are active on that level, the initiators. And then the way campaigns can work, they can be in different ways. The ways that we've described it in the webinar on the website, this is the second of those blog posts that fleshes this out a little bit more, is I have sort of 3 categories, but they might in practice kind of new things might happen. But the way that I think about it is, let's say you start a campaign, Sue, where you are in New Jersey and in your town, and you say, I want to see if I can get the local government to really bite on this. And it's going to be a local government campaign where, much like Boulder, you have a representative from Boulder County said, yes, we're going to do it. And then they made a selection process with some feedback from me and some other members of staff based on their priorities. They were interested in wastewater treatment integration because it's very local and they could see something like that happen where they are. And so the goal of the local person here is to bring it to the attention of the city or the county and say, hey, this is going on. I think this would be good for these reasons. Do you want to be involved? And so that's one way of doing it. And then the second way of doing it is maybe you don't have that. Maybe it's like, we're a group of students, or we have a club, or we're an organization, and we think we could just crowdfund this and we're going to represent where we are. And then there's hopefully what I think will be maybe the most common is that you have a bit of both, where you have the involvement of the local government, they're supportive of it, they sign off on it. Maybe they're involved in the supplier selection, maybe not. Maybe they put in half the money and then the rest is crowdfunded. There's many iterations of that could take. But to get to your question, we don't want to list the campaign on the page until that initial group came together and made a selection. And then they put it up there. And then there's that much broader group of people that are supportive of it, but they're not going to be that type of person, right? They're like, I'm going to put $20 in. I'm going to put $100 in. I'm going to spread the word on it on social media. So hopefully that answers kind of the first half of your question. The other one is, there is a way that we could add 2 suppliers onto a campaign page. I did figure that out. So you could do it that way. If your group of people said, oh, we kind of like, I know where you are in New Jersey, you might want to pick Ion as a local hometown hero, or Avnos, which is going to have a plant there. And you're going to either set a 5,000 goal for each, or you're going to split it down the difference, whatever you're going to do. We have the capabilities on our website to be able to do that. So when you get to that point, Sue, but if you notice when you go to the website and you're going down those stages and it says, go active with your campaign, there is a button there that you go to and it goes to a Google form. And that's where you fill out that information. And that's when you're ready to go public, when people can contribute to campaign. And then we get a notification on our side, and then I just plug it into our website and boom, you're suddenly up there under campaigns. It'll say, your town. So does that answer your question, Sue?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Okay, great. Any other kinds of questions? Again, just about the basic mechanics, or why are we doing this? And that includes people, Harold and Pete and anybody else who might be watching in the audience. If you have any just general questions about what this is all about, like if there's any confusion or even ideas. And if not, I'll be perfectly happy. That means people understand, understand what we're trying to do here.
I have a question, Chris.
Go ahead, Kat.
The question comes from kind of like when we talked to Giles from Port Wainimi, and his concern, well, not his concern, but his question is about, how do we support like the local, like let's, in our local community, how do we support the CDR methods in our community?
Yeah, exactly. So for this, the way that there's a couple of things that this can do, which we sometimes say it's like the first kiss. When I said before that we're trying to use a demand activity to deepen people's passion and excitement about CDR. And really what form that will take is, can I envision it here, right? But in reality, there's kind of 2 paths, one or both, one or the other or both, that a local place could do with carbon removal. Now, there's going to be a lot of places that they see there's a big gap in their net zero, and they're thinking, we don't know how to close that gap with our own available local resources. So maybe down the line, we're going to try to do forms of carbon removal here, right? And there's many of the options actually that are on the supplier list. What's cool about them is they can integrate quite locally. You know what I mean? There are things like that integrate with a wastewater treatment plant, or it could be housed at a port or whatever. But they also might say, well, we don't want to close that with just offsets. We think that that's kind of bogus or a little sketchy or not high impact. So maybe we will commit year after year to making a certain amount of purchases of carbon removals. And that is just going to be part of the program, right? And then they might select, say, well, we'd like it to be as close as possible, or we'd like it to be a certain kind of technology because we think that's cool and that supports our values. Or maybe we even have one of these CDR companies is based in our city or nearby, and we want to see them thrive, and we want jobs that are produced from that, right? So we think it depends on the decision-making. With the port, that's really exciting because ports are like these amazing contexts in which can play a huge role in housing CDR, being involved in the supply chains of CDR. And so if you have those kinds of questions come up, there are options. We know, Kat, that there's a lot of California companies there, and we've talked extensively with them about a couple of different technologies, for instance, like Vicarb. Vicarb wants to live on ports. Vicarb is a really cool technology that does, it's kind of like a form of ocean alkalinity enhancement where they mineralize carbon with ocean water, right? And they want to live at ports. So a port that is like super proactive on climate stuff, they might say, wow, it would be super cool if we had a Vicarb one day. And they might say, therefore, we're going to make this first purchase as a way to support that company, that type of solution, and learn in the process, through it, right? Or they might say, where on the map is the closest thing is to where we are? And in this case, that would probably be like Arbor, which is on there, which is a Beck company, or there's, I can't remember, there might be one other Southern California one that's listed on there. Oh, Vaulted Deep, which will be added. They actually have operations in LA. So there's many different ways that they could do it, but you raise a better point is, let's say if you are going to a decision maker that represents an anchor, sort of member of the community, like the port or the town or city of Port Humani, then you have to kind of, through talking about them, you discover what are their priorities. Like, what is it? Some of them there's going to be certain kind of places that might be like, almost like a sister city type of thing, where they're like, we want to support the form of carbon removal that we're convinced globally will have the biggest impact and needs the most amount of support. We don't care if it's anywhere near us, if it's in Kenya, if what it is, but that one seems like the one that if we get in on early on this and we help support it, that could be the legacy of our support, right? And you can't know that until you talk to people. And the same applies for the second category, where if it's a group of citizens that get together and they bring in some businesses and they come up with basically a crowd fund, they're going to want to come up with their own criteria too. Is it something that we can envision happening here and that's why we're doing it? Is it something that is locally based and that's why we're doing it? Is it something that is the coolest? There could be even things that are, somewhat arbitrary that ultimately rule the day. And the post that I'm putting on that gives some suggestions for how people can come up with criteria. So I don't know, I might've gone down a rabbit hole myself there, Kat, but I think that the lesson is you got to be prepared to meet people where they are, I think, and sort of help them. That's the whole exercise. Pick the thing that's based on their priorities, I would say. Yeah. All right. Okay. At any point, pop in. Oh, here we go. Oh my God. I didn't know that, Pete. Jesus. Pete, bury the lead there. Did you know that, Carl, that Pete is a member of the city council of where he lives? Oh, if I'm a member. Sorry, I missed that keyword in the comments. Pete wrote this here. So this is a thing that you wrote too, which I want to raise too, is let's say you're approaching a local government. Well, who are we talking about when we're talking about a local government? For me, what's significant is just having somebody in the political class or that's involved in local government that puts their hands up and says, yeah, I'm in, right? And so I think that one way we've been thinking about this a lot is to reach out to a sustainability or environmental office or department. That's a good place to start, okay? But that's not the only place you can do it. It might be that you have a great relationship with your local city council, you volunteered for their reelection campaign, and they're super into climate or some other thing that has a hook to CDR. I think it's awesome to go to that council member and say, hey, do you want to be the face of this? Where maybe your office occasionally in certain cities, they might have a discretionary budget where they'll say, we'll put $1,000 in and we're going to do a hybrid one and we're going to raise it. But we're the ones who are going to, through our mailing list, we're going to be the one. And if it's all wrapped around a city council member, that's awesome, because that city council member say, oh my God, I love this. This was so interesting. Maybe next session, I'm going to introduce a piece of legislation that is related to that. Same thing if you have a direct relationship with the mayor or some other person within government. it's very much based on relationships and who's starting the campaign and, who do they know locally. But I just want to put that, it can be broadly defined in terms of who the city government is that you're going to reach out to. So, but to ask Pete's answer here, what does my town get from participating in this? So we want to be really clear on this. There's not much of we want to attract people that, well, what it can do is it could go towards your, you could count it towards your emissions goal, like it's quantifiable, there's a certain amount of tons that will be bought for 5,000. It's not going to be a lot, just want to put that forward, but it could go towards that. But really what it is it's community saying, we think this is important for climate, something important that our community should be involved in. And this is the beginning of the process. So you would get recognition, you'll buy those tons. There'll be a sort of a certification of that. You'll be able to put it in city reports if you wanted to, and say, hey, we did this year. We're exploring maybe future purchases or involving carbon removal. So there is a quantifiable piece there that through participating, would be the get, I guess, is a way to think about it. Good question though, Pete. Okay, great. So I wanted to, and again, at any point, just put up your hand or just turn off your mic and say, hey, I got something to add. That's the way these will be.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Chris, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So when you're giving, you're basically making a charitable donation and the government is not getting the benefit of the tax implications of that. But you don't officially, right? TerraSet owns the tons. Is that right? So in terms of carbon accounting, this is really more contributory as opposed to
yeah, it's no one owns the tons because it's not formally like a carbon credit or something like with green claims. And it's not that TerraSet does either. TerraSet, which I should mention again, I mentioned on the webinar, but not enough. Our partner in this is TerraSet, which I'll drop the link in a second, which is an awesome not-for-profit organization that exists really to create demand for carbon removal. And because they're set up as a nonprofit, when someone contributes to this, it means that they can get a actual, tax deductible record of that. So like for anybody, whether it's $20 or it's some business comes in and wants to do, the whole enchilada or, says, I love this and I'm gonna do 10,000 or whatever that may happen, that will actually be tax deductible. So, and when you make a purchase, the link that you hit goes directly to TerraSite's page for that. You put in your email and boom, you get an email back in that amount that you actually did the transaction in. So that helps the individuals or tax-paying entities. It's not part of the appeal for a government. Obviously, they're not going to make use of it, but it helps for anybody else that will contribute to it. But TerraSet doesn't also hold those as well. The goal of it is it really appeals to people that want to, in a very meaningful way, contribute to demand for the purpose of helping the sector or helping a particular company or a particular solution. But there's no reason why a city couldn't, itself, it did do it. It's verified that it happened. If they make their own rules, if they decide that they want to say this counted towards our goal, they could. But again, $5,000, depending on the solutions, isn't going to take out a massive chunk of that. That's not really the purpose. It's the purpose to get these places to the next stage of awareness and interest that might lead to bigger purchases, or it might lead to, and they could make bigger purchases using it in a way that they could get a green claim for it. You know what I mean? But $5,000 isn't really in the territory of that being meaningful. I know that's a bit wonky in terms, whenever you talk about carbon markets and claims and stuff, it is. But did that kind of answer your question, Sue?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear about, I'm not going to get a certificate of REX.
No,
because that would be that I'm buying something as opposed to making a contribution.
Right? Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's right. But nobody also will get, the way that TerraSet has decided to structure itself because of the tax deduction, no one gets that REC, right? But let's just say the city makes a contribution to this and they decided it wanted to make a larger contribution. For many of these companies, there's another channel that they could take that would actually allow them to get a green claim, or something like that. Yeah, we could pursue that if we get to that point and that question is
right. But through this program, that wouldn't be through this program. It would be
exactly
sort of maybe triggered by this program.
Hopefully it's all about triggering. Again, this is the sort of the gateway in, we hope, that it leads to bigger things. It's a way of getting started. But you can also imagine, like, let's say by the end of the year, also if I go down to COP, this is the thing I'm not talking about a lot, but my other job, which keeps me quite busy really operates more at the UN level and is pretty global. And it's very focused on the annual, what can we get done at the conference of parties, the big giant UN climate meeting where there's negotiations and stuff. And for me, cities and sustainable cities are a part of the agenda there, right? CDR is not formally on the agenda for that right now. But if we could go down there and I'm in the blue zone and we're doing something and we could show, look at this map, at an event that showed, 200 cities, or I don't even want to say, because I'm superstitious, I don't know how many we'll get, but where you show that there's this hands up of a bunch of local governments that are, saying, we're interested in this. So this is the beginning of our journey, particularly in the US, which is why I was really sort of adamant this year, having it be the US. In future campaigns, I would love to have versions of this happening in a variety of other places. But right now we're in a kind of a low point. Let's just be honest about what we're doing at, to say the least. It's really important in America. We've done this before. We did it in 2016. We did it back in 2000. There's a response from the local when we have trouble at the federal, right? And so, that's part of the thing for my own special interest in this is, like, can we start to animate the local around carbon removal, since we have not only an absence of leadership, we have anti-leadership, I guess you could call it, at the federal level. So anyway, that's one of the things that really appeals to me about this campaign. So let me ask a question to the people that are on here. I guess this is really for John and Melissa, because I know, Brian and we can even do some updates on that, maybe kind of hearing from each of you who are already starting to gear up for doing a campaign where you are locally. But, for John and Melissa, you guys are the type, in my engagement with you, to activate around things, particularly local. But let me know from someone who does this sound like something that's appealing maybe in your city, where you'd say, yeah, we'll try to bring this to the attention, or maybe we'll do a crowdfund. And if not, and if you're thinking about it, but curious how this sort of lands with you, since you're the ones that I haven't sort of asked this question to yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure at the moment where it goes from here. I don't know about approaching our city council. When I saw Pete's comments on that triggered my mind, but I'm not sure our city council would be spending money on this. So I'm not sure how we'll crowdsource this yet. It's going to need a little thinking.
I think next week, because there's a couple of things I could do, because those will be up. Next week's session is going to be just about what I've learned. I've done crowdfunding. I crowdfunded, I think ultimately $20,000 or so for the Naka Valley Biochar project, and have done little things around marathons and stuff. So next week, I kind of want to do a little bit of a tutorial on crowdfunding, and that's why we set the limit at 5,000, because that's this sort of, it's a magic number for two reasons. It's a low enough number where often a city or a city agency might have just discretion to say, yep, that's low enough. It doesn't trigger what we look at as competitive procurement laws, right? So it's low enough for that. But it's also this sort of magic boundary where it's within the friends and family territory that they say in crowdfunding. So it might be you get a group of people together, and through their schools or through this, you can raise it without doing some kind of massive marketing campaign. You know what I mean? So that was why I kind of put it on that. But we'll talk about that next week, I think would be appropriate. So people, when they're embarking on this, they're like, well, how do I do that if I've never done a crowdfund? I think would be a good focus for it. Let's kind of do a kind of an around here just about where people are in CAT. If you want to talk, because I think this is one of the most exciting ones that really you and Sebastian really kind of originated. It was the sort of the first example of, because you guys had to kind of look around in Ventura County. But you want to give sort of the state of play there in terms of what we've done in Port Hueneme?
Yeah. But Port Hueneme is like, I'm in Oxnard, so like maybe 20 minutes away, 15, 20 minutes away, but it's known as a green port. And so I think what Sebastian and I decided was like, hey, we're like what Chris was saying, like if you're going to your council members or, those bodies of, local governments, it's easy to just find like that sustainability department or somebody like more low-hanging fruit, kind of understand CDR, And we just know that the port is very much into, community outreach and getting, everyone involved and being good stewardships of the city and of the earth. And so I think that was kind of a no-brainer for us to reach out to them, because they're also officially known as a green port as well. So it was good for us to kind of get, to talk to the director of sustainability there and kind of just explain to him, what we're doing and how much you can commit and, what it can really do to kind of push the envelope and achieving their climate action plans.
Yeah, they are very impressive. And we've had subsequent conversations with them. We've prepared a whole sort of deck on CDRs and ports, and they got real busy, but then they got back to us about a week and a half ago that, we'll pick up the conversation, but, we'll let them speak for themselves when the time comes. But it's certainly, I think they got the message, and there's real interest there. And that would be awesome to have a port community and a port itself as one of our early members. I'm really, really excited about that. And Carl, you've been kind of, oh, sorry, Kat, did you have something to add to that?
Oh, I was just going to say, and it's kind of a domino effect. So once we get, them on board, I think the other cities will kind of follow in light of what they're doing and being good stewardship. So we're excited about that part for sure.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, the way I look at this with a timeline, a lot of things that are campaigns like this, they benefit from a compressed timeline. You know what I mean? And so what I'm really trying to do this summer is to look at some of the low-hanging fruit. There's many cities, all of the other Four Corners members, I've approached about this, and we're in conversation. Albany, New York, everybody knows I'm from Albany because I say that every 45 seconds. I don't live there, but I'm from there. I've talked to the sustainability director there. So I'm trying to get an initial set of dots on the map that we can have. And then as we get into after, and if it takes off during the summer, phenomenal, but as we get into Climate Week territory after the summer, people back from vacation, to say, okay, here's our 3-month window, before the end of the year, boom, let's try to go out and recruit and get as many people as possible. If it doesn't turn out this way and this thing takes off by word of mouth or through our own efforts, phenomenal. But that's the way I kind of have it in my head, is probably the way it'll shake out. But yeah, Carl, you want to talk a little bit about your efforts? Yeah.
Sorry, I lost my internet connection for a second.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to.
Cool.
What you're up to. You've been it from a personal connection where you are. In terms of
Right. Yes. Cool. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm in a relatively small town in the San Francisco Bay Area called Los Altos. And Brian, I know you're going to have to leave shortly, but he's nearby in Menlo Park. So one of the things I always mention when I'm talking to people about this is that, hey, I've got a close colleague working on this in Menlo Park, and you can start to create a little bit of a competitive, well, wait, is Menlo Park going to beat Los Altos, to the punch on this? So that's kind of fun to bring in that angle. The other thing that I noticed, and again, for folks that maybe have joined since I first introduced myself, I recently had a chance to sit with our mayor for a few minutes at he was holding office hours locally. And he asked for a specific example of a company that's doing the work. And the first thing that popped into my head was Crew Carbon. So I mentioned Crew Carbon. And he said, oh, well, did you know that the wastewater treatment plant that we share with the city of Palo Alto is undergoing, a big renovation next year? And that was all news to me. And all of a sudden there's this connection of oh, wait, so now I've got a reason to talk to people in Palo Alto. Again, Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Los Altos, they're all three, sharing borders, really close to each other. So this idea of it's hyper local, but you can sort of bring in other cities that are nearby. And the mere fact that our mayor knew about this forthcoming wastewater treatment plant retrofit, I thought, oh, this could be an actual Crew Carbon, business opportunity. Who knows?
Yeah, that is such a good example, because I like it. It's that thing, you talk to the mayor, and oh, by the way, and that discovery is, you cannot possibly see that from a high level if you're a CDR company or a national advocate. It can only be discovered by people that are in your position. And I think that'll be one of the exciting things about what was the thing that was the hook that it worked. But you have an embarrassment of riches in the Silicon Valley area, right? Like you got, it's California for crying out loud, but you got two other things. It's the densest concentration of CDR companies, some of which are on the supplier list in the whole world. And then you also have Senator Becker, who is one of the most prominent legislative champions in the world, state or national. He's introduced 2 awesome bills and really knows his stuff. Very, very smart guy. And he's already kind of told us, now would be a good time to send out on his newsletter to all the different cities and municipalities that he thinks this is a great idea. You know what I mean? So it's those kinds of things that we want to sort of be able to identify to kind of, make this happen. So excited to see if we can get something going there, Carl. It'd be cool if maybe it's Crew or it's something else, but it's good that he offered something based on what you said. And then lastly, I think, Brian, I'll kind of put you in with the Silicon Valley with Carl. But, you reached out to me. You already kind of explained in your intro what you're interested in. So I kind of look at where you and Carl are as a block, that maybe we can get kind of a domino effect sort of going with a little bit of Senator Becker's help. But yeah, Sue, I don't know if you want to kind of mention unless you did, Brian, or was that a wave goodbye? I knew you had to jump.
I have to sign off, but thanks,
Okay, cool.
everyone.
Thanks for joining, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch of ideas and I'm not sure how I'm going to proceed. We have a local, our county has a business partnership that has a sustainability group that meets every month. And I could probably, pitch this to the sustainability businesses. We've got a very active citizens climate lobby group locally. I could probably get some folks from that interested. And then I've got connections with our county commissioners. I've got, I know people who are on environmental commissions for the towns nearby. So I'm still, I guess I'm still a little, I don't really have a good sense of how the governments might play in this, but I definitely see, getting businesses and individuals involved is not an issue at all. The thing for me is that so I'm in Bridgewater, which is where Avnos's new facility is, that they're going to have a demonstration plant that's supposed to go live this summer. But I think they are holding off on giving pricing right now for this program.
Yeah.
So part of me wants to wait until they're fully in, and then I can go hyper local with it and get really excited, as opposed to saying, well, they're not quite ready yet, but there's Ion down the road or Vicarb up in Brooklyn. And I'd really like to be able to pitch Avnos as sort of the local hero.
Yeah. I think that's hopefully we can, a lot of these companies, they have a million things, particularly DAC companies have so many things to manage right now. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to, when things clear up, get clarity on the price, because they're obviously very interested. Ion, which you have right at Princeton, a really cool enhanced rock weathering company. It's always game. They were so responsive when we reached out to them to participate in it, based right there at Princeton. So you got some great options.
Yeah, I can. And I just going back to Carl's point is I can totally see a Bridgewater Princeton rivalry going. Maybe Adam at Ion would have some suggestions on who could lead a campaign down there, or maybe I'm sure they have a citizens climate lobby down there, or they have a sustainable Princeton group. I mean, I could probably try to get
both of those things are true, and I know that.
Carl went to Princeton. Yeah.
Well, that's neither here nor there, but there's a very active CCL chapter in Princeton. So
yeah, so I'm gonna pursue that. I could totally see that working.
Yeah, I could see it being cool, Sue, where, just to get it going, something that was a crowd fund, because I think where you are, you have great connections, and there's all those towns in northern New Jersey, and then there's Princeton itself, and a lot of them they're pretty aggressive on sustainability stuff. Like you can see a crowd fund being pretty successful, and then a hybrid thing where you go to, like, whether it's going to the mayor of Princeton and, hey, we're doing this. Like you want to be at least an interested party in it. And maybe you say something or it goes on the website. it'll be
Yeah,
fun.
I mean, maybe it just comes in the form of media support as opposed to budgetary support if they can't do that for some reason.
Yeah, if they give a quote on it and they pay
Yeah.
attention to what it is and they learn about it and they're like, Jesus, I didn't know that Ion was, I didn't even know what that is. You know what I mean? And that's a win. You know what I mean? So we'll talk about it. I think it'll be part of the fun part. I only provided those sort of schemas, but in reality, because of it's a very human thing we're trying to do here that's going to be driven by sort of relationships. We're going to discover different iterations. And my goal is, like, imagine we're 2 months from now, we've done a bunch of campaigns and they all kind of had their own sort of dynamics to it. We want to show that because I think it gives people a sense of, I think I could do that, or that's kind of like the situation I'm in. You know what I mean? So I think with these early ones, we'll discover, you know, a variety of different ways in which it could, you know, potentially work. I'm going to be begging my family, obviously, who I have a huge, you know, Irish Catholic family in Albany, and I might be able to just raise $5,000 to them. They're a little cheap, but, you know, we'll see what I can pull up. You know, but yeah, I think that'll be really exciting. And one thing I want to do, just because we're running on time, is there is something I created that I dropped for the people that are on screen here just to look at first, but I'll share my screen and just show you. I want to create, you know, just be able to sort of track where we think there are places that we can find through our own networks, through Open Air, through Citizens Climate Lobby, or whatever, that, oh, I know somebody there, you know. And so I've started to create a list here, sort of a tracker. Let me know if you guys can see that. So the first page is just empty, and it just has this one thing that says state, right? And the second page is data, where I'm adding places for different reasons, which I'll explain, that have some sort of background. Is it a city? You know, what's the state of engagement? No contact, contact. Why is it that this is on this list as a place that we think might be interested? And then if there's, I won't show anybody's email there. It, you know, it just sort of, it allows us to kind of track, right? And so if you go to the Campaign Universe thing, right now we just have mostly California and some in New York. But if you go here and you click California, it would show, oops, sorry, Carl. It would show the, you know, the places that are listed there, you know. And so that is just going to be a thing that for those of us who are kind of have been involved in the kind of the development of this, we will kind of keep fleshing that out and see how much progress we're sort of making, you know. So that'll be a useful tool, which I shared with you guys in the sort of the private channel there. So Sue, as you're finding places in New Jersey and the data, when you can just sort of add those, okay, Carl, we can, or Harold, just letting you know, we can see your message there, but the only messages you've had from you are that you're trying to figure out how to send messages. So we can have you on next week, and you can hold forth and share your thoughts and ideas, because we definitely want to get something going in Marin County. So anyway, hopefully you guys get a sense of what I'm trying to do here. Every week we'll kind of get down to nuts and bolts. You don't have to join every week. And if you want to be on the front of the screen, if you want to do it at the back of the screen, but I'm just going to hold these as sort of an office hours, and it'll do different things every Thursday. But I think it's important to have this community develop and to have a time in the week where there's an opportunity to talk about the mechanics and the goals of it. So, all right, well, guys, thanks for joining us for the inaugural. Have a happy 4th of July, wherever you may be going. I'm about to jump in a car and head upstate, and we'll talk in the meantime. But you know, hopefully I'll see some of you guys tuning in or joining me on Thursday. All right, guys, bye. Thanks for everything.
All right, bye-bye.